With our final exams about to start, I thought I'd make a short video about how to fill in our general purpose answer sheets, because a lot of marks are typically allocated to multiple choice questions, and incorrectly completing this sheet can often result in 0 marks or a delay in the preparation of your mark. So a few of the coordinators here at the Accounting Discipline Group at UTS have asked me to put together a short video for you. So with our general purpose answer sheet, you generally get given questions and then you have to colour in the little spots for each of the responses. But there are some common mistakes that do create a lot of frustration for coordinators and then also result in problems for students. So let's go through a few of those. The first problem commonly that we see is this one. A student has completed the multiple choice sheet, but they have no name filled out and they have no student number. Now, if you don't have your name or your student ID and all we have is these small dots coloured in on the front, we can't match it to a particular student. So you need to make sure that you've always got your student name and details. So how do you fill that out? It's really easy. Fill it in up the top. And then make sure you colour in the relevant circles. Now most students at UTS will be doing this in their reading time. And when there's a space between your first name and second name, make sure you fill in the little dot. This should be nice and quick. And of course you can do this in pen. I'm doing this in pencil here just in case you make a mistake. So name is great. Even better is the student identification number. So make sure you use your student ID, fill it in there, as well as colouring in the numbers. So that's really important. What other common mistakes do we often see? This one's a big one. A lot of students will fill in their name, however they won't fill in any of the dots. Now the dots are important because all of these sheets are marked by computer and the computer actually picks up the individual dots to prepare your name for the results spreadsheet. So please make sure that you fill in both your name and your student ID. There's no need to fill in whether you're male or female, the grade or education, the birth date. Name and student ID is sufficient here at UTS. My next common mistake is students filling in the student ID but starting at the wrong point. So often they'll start at the beginning here, which is day and year, instead of starting here for the beginning of the student ID. Now, your student ID is 8 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there'll be 2 spare at the end that don't get used. So please make sure you copy your student ID carefully because we use your student ID to match up to your results. So that's the sorts of errors that we see in the identification component. What about problems with students actually filling in the results sheets themselves? A common mistake that students make after they've filled in their student number and their name is that they'll start at the very first question. Now this question here is actually question 121. It's not question 1. So if you start here, often there are not 121 questions in the exam. These questions generally do not get marked. So you'll actually get a multiple choice result of 0. What you need to do is make sure you start with question 1 on the front. That's really important. 1 on the front here, and then work through. Don't skip any of the columns and make sure you're always matching up the questions. Now, what about students that incorrectly fill out the multi-choice sheet itself? So we fill in with pencil. I always recommend students use a pencil here, but you cannot cross out or use liquid paper on any of these responses and then try and fill out a different one because the computer is simply looking for anything filling in this space. So if you do this, the computer actually marks it as 0 marks because you've got 2 items in the one line coloured in. Another common mistake is students actually circle the letters up top instead of actually filling in our small coloured circles. And the last common mistake is students often will do too little. They'll put a line through the individual little circles instead of colouring them in sufficient detail. Our very last issue is students often completing the multiple choice in the actual exam paper. So here's an example of an exam paper. So students might circle inside the paper here and not transfer it onto their multiple choice sheet. Now here at UTS, if you don't put the answers on your multiple choice sheet, you get 0 marks. So it's really important in the last few minutes of the exam to make sure that you take any responses from your exam paper and transfer them. Now, the last thing to remember, and one I forgot earlier, is how to know what your student name and ID are. So this is my staff ID. All right. So when you're filling out the last name portion, your last name is this name here, the bottom name. Your first name is this name here. Now that might seem pretty self-explanatory. However, for a lot of international students, especially from Asia, where your surname is typically your first name, please make sure you use this name at the bottom there as your surname so that there is no confusion, because in our results spreadsheets that we get from the Student Centre, this is listed as your surname and this is listed as your first name. So please make sure you do that on your multiple choice results sheet. Hopefully those are some easy rules to follow. If you do those, then there shouldn't be any problems in completing your multiple choice in the exam, and therefore that shouldn't have any adverse effects on your results. If you do complete the sheets incorrectly, then you can be awarded 0 marks or less marks if there are some discrepancies. Best of luck, everybody.